Welcome back everyone to Bevvy Live 2025. We are here at Kilchoman for Fèis Ìle 2025. One of my favourite distilleries. For me, they've got such a distinctive distillery DNA. Ross, you're a fan as well?
Absolutely, I loved their release last year, and today we are meeting Anthony, the owner and founder. Let's go in.
Here we go. Well, Ross, here we are at one of our probably favourite Islay distilleries for Fèis Ìle 2025. We are at Kilchoman, which we've been admirers of for quite a while. Joined, of course, by founder, owner Anthony Wills. Thank you so much for having us and explaining your hospitality is always appreciated. Ross, how have you got on with Kilchoman over the years?
Well, you know it's been a learning process for me because I'm learning to love heavily peated whiskey. But in a warehouse, on site, trying a new release, I'm excited for that, no doubt about it. And last year, of course, we came and tried the first 100% Islay unpeated, which was very suited to me on paper. Yeah, it
was a bit of a curveball, but we loved it. It was a huge
It was delicious. Success, and obviously, we already spoke about the floor maltings, etc. For people that don't know, Kilchoman are one of the few distilleries that still do really, really traditional methods of making whiskey. Why is that important to the distillery, Anthony?
I think it's just having a point of difference there. You know, there are over 100 distilleries in Scotland when we opened Kilchoman in 2005, and we needed to stand out. And one way we could stand out was locating it on a farm. That's traditionally how distilling started in Scotland 200-300 years ago, and growing some of the barley that we use in production.
So you've not made it easy for yourself, really, by doing those traditional methods. I guess you have more control.
It gives us more control, but I think it's more important that the consumer around the world likes provenance, tradition, traceability, and I think you know, the 100% Islay, you can trace it all the way back to the fields that we grow the barley in.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are in 2025. Obviously, the last kind of year or two has been not flourishing for whiskey. It's been a challenging time for I think, everybody across the sector. What is it about Kilchoman's kind of DNA, the brand, all that stuff? Are you sort of flexible in kind of working towards the market? Are you sort of resolute in what you are and what you believe in? Are you sort of unchanging in what Kilchoman is?
Well, as a small company in the industry, we have to be flexible. We have to be innovative. We have to work with our distributors and consumers around the world to understand, you know, their desires and their needs. And I think, you know, as you point out, it's been challenging 2 years post-COVID. It had to come to an end. It couldn't keep on growing like it was. I think for me, though, it's the fact that we got going when we did in 2005, which was one of the first new distilleries to get underway. And then, as you know, we've got a raft of new distilleries around, not only in Scotland, but around the world. And here in Islay, we've got another 3 starting up and another one.
It's getting a bit busy on the island, isn't it?
Yeah, but it staggers me. It's taking so long for people to realise that Islay is actually, you know, an important place to make whiskey. So I had a very good run at it, 12 years before Ardno opened up, and now we've got a quick fire 2 distilleries, Port Ellen starting up, which is a great thing for Islay, I think, because of, you know, the traditions of Port Ellen being working in 1980s. There are rumours, or I think they're pretty strong rumours, that Chivas are also building here. So I think we got enough now, to be honest. I think the island's creaking as it is at the moment, and as everybody knows, we've got the challenges for running a business here on the island is the logistics, housing, just everything like that is a huge issue. But look, we're very fortunate on Islay because we got no unemployment. Youngsters who went away to find employment are coming back and finding jobs. So it's you know, that's all very positive. I think the issue is that the investment hasn't been there on the island to grow, and we haven't been just growing over the last 2 or 3 years. We've been growing for the last 20 years. So I think everybody has to realise that, you know, it's been a sticking plaster up until now. Unfortunately, we are getting investment in the island, but, you know, like all things, it's too little, too late. It should have been done a long time ago. I'm not going to get too political, but
but even as you suggest, getting raw materials over to the island has become such a bigger challenge than it would be elsewhere.
Islay is hugely important to the Scottish economy, and they should have done more earlier to make sure that we were able to continue the amazing growth that this island has achieved. Not just whiskey, but tourism. Whiskey tourism is a massive part of the island economy. So I think we could have done with more help sooner. There we are.
In terms of Kilchoman's journey, as you say, this is your 20th anniversary year. You've had your series of 20th anniversary special bottlings. What stage are you at now with stock and inventory? Because you've now got the feasibility to release 15, 16, 17-year-old expressions if you want to. Yeah. Is that going to be something that's a consistent feature going forward, or just for special releases?
Well, I think
Kilchoman's great young. So
look, I think the challenge for anybody building a new distillery is building up stock and having enough stock of age profile moving forward. And you don't do that overnight. It takes years to build your stock profile, but we're getting there now because we have increased production over every year since we started in 2005, and now we're up to well over 600,000 litres of alcohol. When we first started in 2005, we only filled 7 casks, and in 2006, 50,000 litres. So it shows you how far we've come. And yes, we hope that we'll have more regular, older releases. Yeah. At the moment, that profile is, the stock in the warehouse is quite small. Anything over 15 years, there's not a huge amount of stock. Yeah. But look, we'll be able to build that up over the years. And I think we're now in a place that we feel comfortable in. We're not chasing our tails. 4 or 5 years ago in 2020, when COVID hit, suddenly sales just rocketed for the next 3 years. And we were potentially running out of stock. That was a crazy situation. So in a way, it's quite good that we've had this little slowdown and recalibration, and we can get back on track. Look, it's been tough, but it's been quite a good thing for us. I don't think a lot of the new distillers will be telling you that, because clearly for them, it's the challenge is getting their product on the market.
Even seeing the evolution of your core range products in Maccabee and St. has been really interesting, because as Laurie said, they did work at such a young age. There's almost a feeling, there must be a bit of a feeling that goes, well, you will release 25, 30-year-old, 40-year-old whiskey eventually, but your whiskey works really well at a young age, and maybe don't feel the pressure to have to do that.
But you're also a businessman, so
I think if anybody asks me the sweet spot, there isn't a sweet spot because it's good at a young age, as you rightly say. What happens, and those who get the chance to taste the anniversary bottlings, the 214 and a 15 and an 18-year-old, there's more cask influence. So do you enjoy the sort of hard-hitting, briny, salty character, or do you want it more mellow and integrated with the cask? Yeah. Look, I would say that there's a reason why people buy Islay and tend to buy it at a relatively young age, and you don't see so many 20, 30 and 40-year-old Isleys available. If you do, they're very expensive.
Yeah, it's from that DNA, isn't it?
We set out to be able to release at a young age. Yeah. Unfortunately for us, that worked pretty well. Yeah. And so we aren't going to change that particularly. Yeah. Maccabee and St. Will there be age statements? We're not sure. Yeah. Consumers aren't telling us that they need to be at this stage, and we're just waiting to see. But, we do listen to the consumer, because if you don't listen to the consumer, you're dead and buried at some point. 100%.
This probably brings us on to a good time if you want to introduce your Fèis Ìle release for us and pour a wee dram for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Fèis for everybody on Islay is massively important to the community. I think it's the busiest week of the year on the island. It's a way of showcasing the island in all its glory. Islets are very welcoming. I could never say I'm an Islay. I lived here for 21, 22 years. Yeah. But you have to be 4th or 5th generation before you're called an Islay.
It would be lying if you said you'd picked up the accent.
But look, we like to do something slightly different every time we do a Fèis. We are one of the few distilleries on Islay that only release it on our open day, which we feel is hugely important, because those who've made the journey to Islay need to have the opportunity of buying something special. Yeah. And we know that a few distilleries have opened it up around the world. We don't believe that's what we should do. Fèis is about people coming to the island to enjoy everything about the island, the hospitality around the island, and come to the open days. And I think we love our open day. Our open day is very special. It's a way of us showcasing everything about Kilchoman. And I think we stay in production. Yep. Everyone can wander. We're there, as you see, people are wandering into the distillery to have a look around and onto the malt floor. And then we just make it a very casual event where they can listen. Listening to bands is all part of it, and eating and drinking.
Last year was my first festival, and I get what you mean. Without getting too politically, as you say, I was able to buy Fèis releases before coming to the island, whereas I had to queue up for your Kilchoman release, which was great. So now it has pride of place on my shelf.
I think we'll always do that. I think it's hugely important. I think there's a reason. And back in the old days, everyone just released the bottling on their day, and you had to queue up to get it. And there's something about that I enjoy. And that those who come get their chance to buy, and that to me is what it's all about.
Yeah, it also didn't feel like a cash grab either. Some distilleries you go to, you think, I just want to have a whiskey, so you go for their standard release and you pay £5-6 for a dram. But here it was, have you not had Sanig before? I'll try this.
Have
some more.
Have
this. So it was recognition that people have made the effort.
Well, the important thing
what have we got this year?
So this year we've released it's a refill ex-refill Madeira cask, chilled for over 9 years, and 615 bottles. And for us, 615. I mean, it's in some cases quite small compared with some releases, which are well into their thousands. But this means that most of it, or all of it, will be sold on the on the day, and that to us is what it's all about, and it's at a relatively sensible price. Because we make whiskey for people to drink, we're not making it really for people to sit on it and sell it later.
Excellent. So this is cask strength, single
This is cask strength, 57.5%. And non-chill filtered natural colour.
Perfect.
And so, Laurie, you've probably tried Kilchoman in a whole variety of casks in the last couple of years, as have I. Any kind of favourites to you? Anything stood out?
I think it's kind of been remarkably consistent in its quality, but also the cask influence can shine as well without overshadowing that distillery DNA. So I think for me, that's why Kilchoman is one of my favourites, because you taste it and it doesn't taste like anything else on the island, which for a lot of people who maybe don't drink whiskey or don't like smoky whiskey, you say all whiskey tastes like the same or all smoky whiskey is the same. To have such a distinctive character is a real achievement.
Well,
so
thanks
very
for sharing
excited.
That's really appreciated. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
Straight away, 57.5%. You don't get it on the nose at all. It's very, very welcoming.
I think the thing is, it's quite off the still that the spirit is very floral and sweet. And therefore, even at the higher strength, you don't get a lot of alcohol burn, or you don't feel as though there's a lot of alcohol prickle. It's lovely and smooth, and it's different because this is Madeira cask, so it is a different style.
Yeah, what are the sort of key flavours that people would expect from Madeira, particularly working with
you get a sort of barbecue style on the nose, but still rounded and floral. You're not necessarily a lot of smoky, briny character on the nose.
Madeira wine can be overly sweet, but you don't get it here because it combines with the spirit quite well.
And this is from our own barley as well.
Okay.
Yes, 100%.
So that again is special to everyone who works here, because looking after the barley right from the fields through to putting it in the bottle. There's not many distilleries can say they do that.
There's still plenty of distillery DNA, isn't there? That's not cask orientated necessarily, in the way that you expect maybe what some official bottles would do at a release with Madeira could be overly sweet. This is Kilchoman with, you said refill, right?
Yeah, refill. So you're not going to get all that power coming through from the first fill Madeiras. So a bit more restrained. And with the 100% Islay malt, which is lighter and more floral, you just get that lovely combination of balance and fruit.
I think it's a lovely dram.
What do you think?
Yeah, really complex.
That's a bit of you, isn't it? Yeah.
Biscuity. I think that, because it's not, in terms of smoky whiskey, it's not a young whiskey. And I think as soon as we said, peated whiskey gets to maybe 8, 9, 10 years plus, it does fade away a little bit and almost loses that characteristic that makes it special.
Yeah, and I think
this retains that.
That's why people like Islay, because they want all that. That briny, salty character. They want it coming through. And that's why Islay's become such a popular region for single malt. So you're going to lose that if you leave it in the cask for a lot longer.
There does seem to be a shift this year towards distilleries sort of almost going back to basics. And we're going to stick with what we're good at. At Bonahaven, for example, they've kind of experimented with their peated expressions. This year we're saying, no, we're just going to stick with
what we're good at.
Stick with them.
And maybe, again, slightly more focus on distillery DNA and distillery character. That's something you can't escape when you're doing floor maltings.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I think, but using all these different cask types that we do and experiment with, really showcase how important the cask is to the flavour and character of the whiskey that you eventually enjoy.
Obviously, I had the Sauterne cask you released earlier this year, and it blew my socks off. It was absolutely outstanding. And again, I normally struggle with heavily peated whiskies. This here is what I expect from Kilchoman, but it's not too different to 100% Islay. It's not too different to even some of the more recent Maccabee bottlings that I've had, because it is so clearly and distinctively Kilchoman. What a pleasure to try it.
Yeah, really, really impressive. As you said, people who love Kilchoman for what it is are going to love this. It'll be a slight twist with the Madeira influence, doesn't overwhelm, doesn't dominate.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
What a
really
pleasure.
Impressive.
Cheers,
Thank you so
gentlemen.
much.
Thank you. Let's go enjoy Fèis.
Well, Ross, a great visit to Kilchoman Distillery. Always a pleasure to chat to Anthony Wills, as always, about this year's release. Madeira is a fun twist on the Kilchoman style. What were your thoughts overall?
More up your street than mine, but again, classic Kilchoman. An absolute pleasure to get to have that chat with the owner, founder, and just hear about how important Fèis Ìle is to the distillery. Who are we off to tomorrow?
Tomorrow we're off to Bonahaven and Jura.
Nice.
Two of our favourites as well, so it's will be a great day. So make sure to stay tuned and we'll catch you then.